Nobody cancel practices, right? Unless you're Allen Iverson, but that's a whole different story. Three, two, one. Hey everyone, and welcome to Starting on the Bench, a place where normal people can talk about sports they love. My name is Tim V, and our main topic today is March's Madness. I know this is a play on words that I decided to use for today's topic, because right now it's supposed to be March Madness, and I was definitely looking forward to it. It's something that I'm excited to see people compete, especially young athletes, colleges and all of that, and they deserve to be represented and be seen, especially on TV or major sports or something like that. But here we are in March, being locked down. People are not able to go outside. Well, they are, but it's precaution that everybody decides to choose. Again, the word is to choose to do. Nobody's being forced to be inside, but to choose. I feel like that's what everybody says. Like, I'm not, I'm not forced to be here. I choose to be here. So I feel like if you're in a tough situation, I'm with you. Stay safe and don't get sick, right? But today I want to talk about March. The madness has been going around in the month of March because a lot of things has changed, shifted drastically, moved on from the idea of a perfect season. As we, a lot of things have been going on in basketball, and especially, basketball being canceled, not postponed, but canceled. And then we have NFL having their draft. They're thinking of doing something that's instead of having everybody get together and talk about the draft is going to be it was supposed to be in April in Las Vegas, but instead of doing it this year, they're going to do everything that they organized. They're going to postpone it to next year, but we're going to have Roger Goodell, the commissioner of NFL. He's going to be doing it online, and then have different coaches and teams like Skype in or something like that. Which exactly, that's something that I want to highlight in this podcast today, is that no matter what happens, humanity finds a way out. No matter what happens, I'm excited to understand that teams still want to function, and they will do whatever it takes. So it's not just one person getting sick of it, but it's like, oh, we're canceling everything, right? Obviously, precaution, everything is mandatory, but as you know, NFL draft picks and all of that, they're going to be still happening. People still have lives, but it's going to be with precaution and careful, precision of how everything's going to be done. So they're not being fools. They're really taking care of it. So, and we're in the fourth week of March right now. We're finishing up. This is the last week of March, and second week of quarantine, I believe, 2020. As you can tell, everyone is bored and upset with themselves, stuck home, but not just them. The scene of sports as well. So I feel like the scene of sports is stuck in this limbo of what exactly they need to do, because they don't want to postpone to lose money, but cancel to lose money, but they want to postpone. By this summer, there's already so many things happening. If you're a continuous listener to this podcast, you understand that we talked about year 2020 that's going to be postponed to next year, 2021 Olympics, and we're going to talk a little bit at the end here as well of what's happening with them, and at the same time of other major events here in Europe and in the States. Baseball has been as well postponed. Their season has been postponed until much later, until May, I believe. So I would love to tell you more about what's been happening, and as well, especially my opinion on all of that, because I'm a 26-year-old who thinks that my opinion matters. But here's the thing: I'm going to challenge you. It does, and your opinion matters as well. So I'm excited to create platforms, to go on platforms. I'm sorry, not to create. I'm not that smart, but to go on platforms and talk more about it, have a conversation with you. So later on, it's going to be later on. We're gonna conclude, and I will basically share this idea of what I have of how we can have conversations, right? So for today, there's a couple of things I want to mention, kind of want to talk about. And the first thing is that, we have talked about major sports leagues postponing, canceling, or withdrawing from their races. It is officially madness on the sheets and empty on the streets. So not many people know exactly what's been happening on the sheets of like promotional material. They don't necessarily understand the concept of like how in the world can we postpone but at the same time not step on anybody else's viewership, especially with there are people in the United States, in the Western world, right? We have baseball being so famous, right? But then we have in India, we have cricket, and then we have rugby that's going to be coming up. So it's a lot of things where it's like, who's going to be watching what? And obviously, Europeans, they love their soccer, they love their football, and so they're going to be upset that there's no leagues or there's no other big events happening, and so. I definitely would love to watch the sport, but unfortunately, the part of it is having people. But if the streets are empty, then how are we gonna able to do that? So, to kind of like reiterate, just a few things that I've noticed recently, and something that I want to talk about is the UFC. I know that we mentioned briefly in the last podcast, but I want to get into depth real quickly about what's happening with UFC. I know that. Obviously, I'm a bigger boxer fan, so I'd love to talk more about boxing. But right now, boxing is a little bit iffy because we just had this huge event in February with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and then we're planning on seeing more during this summer, and this fight that's supposedly be happening with what's his name, Sanders. I always forget the names. I'm so sorry, but. What's his name? Canelo and Sanders. And this is something that, like, if you're a boxing fan, you've been looking forward to seeing this fight. If you're new to this, you've been, you don't necessarily understand boxing, but you enjoy watching it. It's definitely a great fight to bet on. I do not promote gambling, but if I did, I would say that. No, I'm not promoting gambling. It's just. It's going to be an interesting fight because both camps are really, to me, they're both equal, and this is something that it all depends on how they're going to be behaving in their camps and all of that. So with UFC, this is something that we'll see a little bit more and more in the upcoming months, I believe. So UFC also postponed their fights. So they have these three main fights that they want to do. And so right now, for instance, Ferguson and Khabib, these two. How to say Khabib, right? He's undefeated, undisputed pound for pound champion right now in UFC. He had this huge fight with Conor McGregor. Everybody, if you're not a UFC, fan or MMA or whatever, but you've seen major fights, right? You've seen Mayweather fight with McGregor because it's all about the money, right? So McGregor decided to cash in, and not cash in, but it's to get the cash because everybody wanted to see McGregor Khabib fight, and so they happened. Khabib won in fourth round. I can't remember. It was last year. 2019 has been very busy, and so 2020 is like, I need a break, man. And so this is something that UFC is going to be postponing their fights, but it will allow them to make it a little bit better because they already scheduled 3 upcoming fights. And if you're looking at boxing scene, it takes a while to make sure, and it takes a couple of months to create one. What is it called? 2-3 months I think it takes to create just a card, like major card, main card, and then undercard, and who's going to be fighting. And so a lot of boxers, they go in, they get injured or something like that, or fighters, they go in, they get injured, or something happens, they jam their toes, they break their ribs or something like that, and they pull out, right? So I feel like with UFC that's been happening. Some fighters, they have been pulling out just because of sickness or something like that, and especially with this one, you can still have fights, but there's a chance that they can get sick or something like that, and it's not going to be fair advantage, So Dana White decided to move these fights till June, which UFC is one of those beautiful phenomenons that you can have major fights going on, major events going on, but UFC is in their own lane. So like, even though if there's nobody watching them, they can still host and then have pay-per-view, right? So it's like, having either just the athletes fighting, or they have a full stadium, they still are able to do something huge phenomenon, right? So I think that right now they're going to be stocking up with fighters in different fights and something that people would want to watch. So, obviously they're living on this edge of viewership, right? People wanting to see the fight and they want to do it as quickly as possible, and people getting the money and leaving. So I think that that's something that UFC is going to be, it's not going to be boring. They will stack up everything when everything's back to normal, and June and July will be so busy with you watching all of it. So the idea, I guess, right now is just save up all the money so that you're able to watch all of these fights. If you're truly a UFC fighter, and not just UFC, but you're a fan of seeing people compete, and I do believe that MMA is something that people competing. Obviously, it's such a money grab scene right now, and I think it has been for a while now. And not to bash on UFC, because you get the titles, you get your promotions, you get your viewership. But at the same time, boxing is the same thing. I'm still upset with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, the way they fought their second fight. I thought that Andy Ruiz is gonna get more money, but at the same time, Andy Ruiz is gonna fight with probably Parker, because I definitely see that fight. I definitely would want to watch that fight. But again, I would watch any fight. But this is something I'm like, that's actually really good. Now that I think about it, it's like there are fights that I would want to watch, and fights that I want to watch it with people. To invite people and be like, oh, this is gonna be legendary. This is gonna be amazing. So that's something the UFC is doing. I guarantee you this is something that UFC is going to be doing a lot. So on the next topic that I want to talk about, but yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what, I'm curious. I'll definitely would create some kind of like a Reddit or Instagram or something like that to have these conversations. So with Tom Brady and the new face of NFL, is our other topic that I want to talk about. I've wrote this down. Like, what will he do and how things will be in Tampa? So, Brady being for 20 years in New England Patriots being bought by Mr. Kraft in 94, I think, 1994. And then all of a sudden in 2000, they got Tom Brady. And so they had those 6 weird years. Anyway, and then all of a sudden we have Kraft, Belichick, and Brady creating this madness and normalizing not just the playoffs but the Super Bowl, because I feel like everybody's like, okay, who's playing, so in the past 10 years it's been like, okay, who's playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl? It's like, it's never been like, what are the 2 teams going to be in the Super Bowl, but it's like, okay, who's playing Patriots in the Super Bowl? And I think that this year it's been a quick change of pace, and I really liked it. The same thing with like the Raptors, being in the playoffs in NBA. So that's something, a quick change of pace with, the Super Bowl having San Francisco 49ers and then Kansas City Chiefs and them winning. So how will Tampa be with Tom Brady? I think that Tom Brady is going to be a great addition to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Buccaneers, like I agree with everybody. The colors are awful. I still don't understand the Buccaneers. I think it's I think millions of people are gonna finally learn how to spell Buccaneers, because I didn't know how to, and I think a lot of people didn't know how to, right? So Buccaneers. I know that Tampa Bay Lightning have been, a fan of Tampa Bay Lightning for a while now, about 5 years or something like that, and they're pretty good. They I can't remember if they went because they've been in playoffs a bunch of times. They're pretty good. They're not able to get into the playoffs, but I know a couple of years ago. Oh man, I can't remember. It was a couple of years ago that they actually went into the playoffs. No, I need to look it up. I'll look it up. But Tampa Bay is really nice, and then they have what is it? Tampa Bay Rays, right? Baseball, which is really nice. They're not that great, but it's my friend is a Cubs fan, and so I decided to be a Cubs fan, and just so happens because they're like, oh, we haven't won World Series in 170 years. I'm like, okay, I'll be a fan of of the Cubs, and so all of a sudden that year they were like champions, but now everybody's like Astros, but I don't know. So Tampa Bay has a lot of good sports, and I think that football is finally getting back on the scene. Not that they were in 2007. They won their first the first playoff game, and then the wild card game, and then or lost it. So they won a couple of games in the playoffs, but then year after year, bad coaching, and then bad choosing of draft and all of that. So right now, it's going to be very interesting, especially with Buccaneers. I think they have, 7-9? Last year they got 7-9 or something like that record. So with Tom Brady, it's going to be inspiring. It's such a weird thing to say, but I think the team's going to be inspired. The coaches, obviously. Tom Brady, he's how do I say this? Him signing gives hope to the city. I'm not really sure why everybody needs to go to Tampa and be like watching them, but the guy signed a 2-year, $50 million dollar contract deal. It's unheard of, obviously. I'm happy for him and all of that. I'm excited to see how he's going to be working with Godwin. It seems like the chemistry is it, like when a new quarterback comes in and everyone's like, who's this old man, especially with Tom Brady being 42, but Tom Brady has built such a career where everybody's like, yes, please. Like he can teach us so much more, and he's, Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls, not just because of him, but the coaching, different teams and all that working. But at the same time, Tom Brady led them, quarterback, say whatever you want, but quarterback is a leadership position, and Tom Brady's a great leader. So I'm curious to see in the next couple of months of who's going to be, who they're going to get, because with the draft coming up in April, and they're going to figure out who's going to be playing on the team. They already have good wide receivers because Godwin, he threw for 30 touchdowns, and he had 30 interceptions. So so if we have these precisions and all that, it's just going to be, I'm really excited. You know what? I'm excited. Screw that. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see how Tampa's going to be like. Tom Brady is not only bringing his talents, his charisma, but he's also bringing inspiration, dedication. I think this phrase that originated in the Patriots says, do your job. Obviously, everybody, it's like Bill Belichick has said, do your job, and if you do your job, everybody else knows that you did your job, and therefore, if you do your job, somebody else does their job, everybody do their job, and that's how we're going to be able to, get those Super Bowl rings. And granted, that's what happened. So I think the Tampa is going to be the next upcoming. We don't know exactly. We don't know how things are going to be, but I have hope. I have hope because. Yeah, the same thing with NFL draft right now with Joe Burrow. I don't know how he's like number one quarterback draft pick right now. He's probably gonna go to the Bengals. We'll see, but he's the guy that when you look at him, he's really good quarterback. He's a really good player. He's got obviously the biggest chip on his shoulder. Not just Joe Burrow, but we have as well Tom Brady, and him being 42 is still feeding off of the negative energy, negative comments and all that. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited. That's the thing. Like, you don't know with sports or what's happening, but I'm definitely excited to see what's going to be happening. So, yeah, we'll see. we'll see. A lot of other quarterbacks are going to be a part of the new NFL face, and I think we'll be talking about that more, and that's something that we're going to be talking about in the next episode this week, especially. So, NFL draft kind of like viewership of who's going to be going to which team, and then we'll be talking about which quarterback signed with who. So that's something that, obviously quarterbacks are dictating the pace of the game, not just coaches. Coaches are very important, I agree with that. But like if coaches are not able to transcend their information to quarterback is not able to tell that to the team, and so that's going to be an issue. So, and to finish off, I think that I wanted to talk about Olympics. I just want to mention it real quickly that Olympics are, as of right now, they're still happening, but they're giving themselves, the leadership of the Olympics, whatever organization, they're giving themselves 4 weeks to figure out if they should do it or not. Because not a lot, but some NFL like wide receivers and all that, they want to participate in the Olympics. And so it's going to be interesting seeing how, if the Olympics are still going to be happening and stuff, and players are going to be not battling but training for that, because the battle is going to come during the Olympics. But it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. But we have to wait and see. That's waiting season is probably the hardest, because we don't know what to do. So for right now, I've always lived this. I've always, I guess, told myself is that if there's a waiting season, I have to do the last thing I was told to do. Right? If we're in a waiting season and the last thing I was told to do is run my marathons, run my tracks, run my skills, right? I have to do it right now and then just prepare, keep on doing what I've been doing. Like nobody canceled exercises, nobody canceled practices, right? Unless you're Allen Iverson, but that's a whole different story. So, yeah. So that's honestly that's been it. Is there something that we're able to take away from this situation, something grand that will make all heads turn when they leave their homes at the end of this quarantine? What will they do? We just have to wait and see. So far, we don't see any signs of action, but it's coming for sure. There's not a lot of things that we're able to notice where everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, we have to do it. But, I'm excited to see how things are going to be. I think that, again, I feel like I repeated myself, but I'm going to say it one more time. When we leave our homes and come back to the norm of the sports, I think we're going to be amazed with what's been planned and happening. So, but yeah, that's been it. Thank you for tuning in and watching. I'm your host, Tim V, and until the next one, peace.